Statewide coalition that supports the upkeep of multi-use trails in Maine are urging lawmakers to support a bond issue that would be on the ballot in November. The Maine Trails Bond would provide $30 million in funding over a 4-year period for the design, construction, and repairs of trails statewide. They say Maine's trails not only bring residents and visitors to all parts of the state, but they also contribute more than $1 billion annually to the state's economy. The funding will help repair the damage caused by the December 18th storm and will create measures to lessen the impacts of storms. This would be the first ever trails bond in the state, and trails are usually maintained by volunteer clubs and organizations, but they lack to repair the recent damage.
Healthcare, mental health, behavioral health, and all those needs that are so important to us are really quite well funded, especially when you look at the Maine Care program and things like that. Our concern is these critical economic diversification efforts are not particularly well funded and do not have a history of being particularly well funded. And whether it's in Rumford or in Piscataquis County, outdoor recreation is the way that we're going to be able to help people have employment and to help people break the cycles of whether it's substance use or unemployment or poverty and deprivation.
The funding would support all trails in the state, including those used for walking, biking, hiking, snowmobiling, ATVing, skiing, and more.